I hope you've got nicer weather where you are. However, we will take ourselves into our own little space in our mind this morning. So what I'm going to do is just change to my other wee camera so that you can see what I'm working on. So Mandala is it's a kind of historical tool that humans have used for sharing what we feel inside and what we know about the earth and the place where we live and what's going on in our minds. It's obviously a visual tool. It is used and has been used for centuries for meditation. So I don't know if any of you have been involved in doing any meditation before, but this is a way to, it's a really accessible way to do a wee bit of meditation and a wee bit of what we now in modern day call mindfulness. You can find Mandala through the ages in different aspects. Even Leonardo da Vinci used Mandala. You can see this a round shape that he used to actually look at the shape of the human body. Mandalas are found everywhere, and after you've done this probably wee workshop today, you'll see mandalas everywhere you go. Mandala is actually what you're looking through your eye is a mandala. It's a round shape and it's concentric circles and lovely colours, and there's loads of different interesting psychological aspects to mandala in terms of the shapes that you use, in terms of the colours that you use. So what I've got a couple of examples here of these sort of freehand mandalas that I've done. I'm just trying to make sure my camera's at the right angle there. And they might look really complicated and you might look at them and think, oh, that looks really difficult. And it really isn't difficult. It's really quite simple. But what you do is you just build up and build up loads and loads of layers. And you're just trying to make it, I know, you're just trying to make it sort of balanced across the circle. Just to confuse you, there are actually other shapes within mandala, but we're going to stick to the circle today. This is just my wee mandala book, and I'll come on to that in a minute, and you can see different colours. That's just one pencil. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do before we get started with the actual technical drawing side of things is we're just going to have a wee moment for a wee moment of relaxation. So if everybody just wants to take a wee moment to just put your feet flat on the floor if you can, and then put your hand on your belly, and then if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and take 2 or 3 deep breaths and try to breathe right into your belly and breathe out. Notice your stomach rising and falling with each in and out breath. So what I would like you to do is to breathe in and count to 5. Hold your breath for a wee second and then breathe out for 5. Breathe in for 5 and breathe out for 5. And continue to do that for a couple of minutes on your own. If you can imagine your breath as a colour that you associate with light and happiness and brightness and kindness in your life. And imagine your breath as this colour that you're breathing in right into your belly and breathing out. And if you imagine that colour surrounding you and filling the space that you take up with positivity. If you feel any tension in your body anywhere, if you feel your shoulders are hunched, if you feel as if your hands are tight, if you feel as if your stomach's tight and your face is feeling a wee bit tight, then just wriggle that space, hunch up your shoulders and relax them and roll them back. And you take your lovely final breath. And if you can just bring your attention back into the space that you're in, into the room, and listen to the sounds that are around you, listen to my voice. And when you feel ready, open your eyes. And hopefully everybody's feeling nice and relaxed. Now, I can sometimes feel a bit nervous when I'm doing these things at first, but that wee bit of breathing just helps you to ground yourself a wee bit. And one of my top tips for you when you're doing mandala is do mandala whenever you feel a wee bit anxious. If you're waiting on something, you know that thing when you're waiting on somebody phoning you back and there's that wee time when you don't really want to do anything else. I was thinking about this yesterday. You don't really want to do anything else, you don't want to start anything else. And well, it's a really useful thing to get yourself a wee book, just a wee sketchbook, just a wee cheap one, and get one lying about, maybe some of the kids' paper, and just keep it handy. And anytime you're hanging about, you don't really know what to do with yourself, do one of these mandalas, and I guarantee you it'll take all that anxiety, nerves and stuff away, because you can get really absorbed in it. So practically, let's look at how you create a mandala. So there's a couple of different ways of doing it. The starting point of a mandala is, I hope everybody can see the camera okay. If you can maybe send Claire a wee message to say that you can't see it, but hopefully you can. So the way that I like to start my mandala is just with a wee circle. And this is traditionally called the bindi point. You can sometimes see this in religious symbols where women have the wee point in between their foreheads, the wee red dot, and that's the bindi, and that's the start of all creation, really, the start of all life. So it's the start of all life for our mandala. And what I would do from there is I would just draw two wee lines, probably about maybe a centimetre in length, across from each other, across in the circle. I hope everybody can see that. I'll hold it up to the camera a wee bit closer so you can maybe see it better. You see it okay? Yes, okay angle. I've got my new camera set up this morning, so hopefully everybody can see it. And then I would draw another two lines going the other way. Now this is where you can use your ruler. If you don't really feel very confident about drawing freehand, then you can use your wee ruler. I've got these wee, I want to call it a protractor, I don't know if that's right. You can use anything at all that's a straight edge you could use if you don't feel confident about drawing the line yourself. But don't worry too much about it being perfect and straight and stuff. That doesn't really matter, and you'll see why in a minute. So you've got your wee cross of lines. You can draw right through the circle in the middle if you feel like doing that. I like to leave my wee circle just empty just now, just in case I choose to maybe put a wee dot or something in it. And from there, draw a wee line in between your other lines. So you should have something that looks a bit like a spider. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines you've got. So 8 wee sections you've got there. Now that gives you quite an even space in between all these wee lines. So what you can then do is think, right, how would I like to fill that? Now, this is where you start to just freestyle it and you start to jam and do whatever you feel like doing. So maybe you want to put a wee dot in between all the wee lines in the middle, and you can see you've almost formed another circle there. So what you can do with that circle is you can go, well, I'm going to do a wee thing like this, wee curves right round, just because today I feel like doing wee curves. And you can see that what you're starting to create is like a wee flower type thing. Okay, so from your wee circle and your wee lines, now you've got a wee flower. Now what you might decide to do now is, I feel like actually completing these other wee lines, drawing them into the middle so that I've got an even, actually it almost looks like petals, doesn't it, now, if everybody's doing that. Now if you're not following exactly what I'm doing, then I'm totally happy with that, because everybody's mandalas should really be different. So what you can do from there is you can draw a circle right round almost the wee dots that you had started with. Now I'm going to be chatting right through this whole session, but normally what you would be doing is you'd be sitting nice and quietly and you'd be doing this. You can maybe put on some music or even the radio in the background I quite like. So then what I would do is I've decided I'm going to do some more lines. So from each of the centres of each of these wee petals, I'm going to draw some more lines. And this will help me to create another circle. Now, I can guarantee you that I draw all day and I do this and I use pens and pencils and paint and stuff all day, but there's no way that my lines are accurate and that they're spaced perfectly or anything. But that's not really what this is about. Okay, so now I've got that, and I think, right, what am I going to do now? Well, I would quite like to do a space in this way, wee curve in this way. And as you can tell, it's very much up to your instinct. It doesn't really matter if it's not the same as somebody else's. It's not about copying, it's about doing it like yourself. So that's the start of a freehand mandala. So that's how I started all these mandalas. These mandalas all started from freehand. That one's obviously just using colour, and these are, and what I did with that one was I started in a bit of colour and then I just added black on the outside, and that's just all just a choice at the time. So whatever's going on in your head, your mandala will reflect and express how you're feeling inside. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're frustrated. This one's a wee bit kind of, I went a bit rainbow. Don't know if I was thinking of the NHS maybe at that point. And I like that one because I used coloured pencils, and it's quite a soft mandala. The paper is quite soft, so it's kind of done a wee bit of shading in that one. And this is a really nice wee book. I think it came from TK Maxx, and it's got gold through the paper, which is really nice. But you can see I've used mandala. Just this one's a bit jaggy. It looks a bit almost like when you see a snowflake, which is magnified. And that's another example of where you're seeing mandalas everywhere. You see mandalas in nature everywhere. They're very much, if you think of the rings of a tree, that's a mandala. So hopefully everybody's getting the gist of what a mandala is. And look at that one. I think that's quite spiky. I think there was something going on in my head that day that made me feel a wee bit spiky. So, right, so that is number one way to do mandala, which is dead simple. You can do it with any implement you've got, and any medium you've got. You can do it in the sand. You can do, when you're at the beach, you can draw a mandala with a stick in the sand. You can do it with rocks. You can create one in your garden. You could actually create a flower bed with your mandala. You can, when you're making a pie, you could make a mandala pie if you want your whole family to join in and eating it. So the other way to do mandala, if you're the type of person who likes things to be really, really neat, which is, I totally accept there are people out there who are like that. That is not me. I'm a bit of a kind of wing it. See, as Claire knows, because I used to work with Claire. So what I've asked you to do, if you can, is get some objects together that are circles, different sizes. So this one I found in the drawer and is really handy. It's a spaghetti measure, because I'm notoriously bad at working out how much spaghetti to make. So my daughter bought me this, and I have to say I don't think it's really helped me that much, but I always make far too much. So this is quite a handy thing, but these are just lids and a bit of tape. So what you want to do is you want to start with and I'm hoping when you're chatting here, you're still doing your freehand mandala, unless you want to try this method. So you should still be drawing away. You start with the biggest one, and you just draw around it. It's dead simple. And if I'd kept going with the freehand mandala, which I'll do in a minute, I'll move my tape, then I would just be keeping adding to the circles. I hope you're doing that better than me. I've just knocked it off. So if you feel like getting a wee bit more control over your mandala, which is totally fine, then you can do it in pencil. And if you actually feel as if there's a bit that you don't really like, or it's a bit that's annoying you, then you can rub it out. And there are no rules to this. It's not that I'm going to say to you, you're not allowed to do that. You can do whatever you feel. This is about complete freedom of expression. Right, so you can see my pretty dodgy circles. So I'm just trying to fit the circles as accurately as I can in each other, so that it's giving me a wee bit more of a guide. I'll just use the wee tiny one there. I don't actually know if you can see that well, but let's hope it's in the middle. Yeah, that's not too bad. Right, so this is just a good way of doing the mandala if you want to be a bit more accurate. Now, some people do mandalas and they use, remember these things you used to get to school? So what you do is you stab that in the middle of the paper and then you just draw around. If you don't have one of these, yeah, I don't think I've actually done that since I was at school. There you go. If you don't have one of these, you can actually just use a bit of string. So you put a bit of string onto your pencil, and then you would hold a wee bit of string and you would use it to make your circle. So that's quite an old-fashioned technique of how to make a circle. So, but usually you can find something to draw around if it's your coffee cup or your wine glass or whatever. So this one, I'm thinking I might do a bit of colour. Got coloured pens. No, can't find my coloured pens. I'll just use my coloured pencils. Right, okay. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Here I'm going to draw. Now I've picked orange, and I have a book, a lovely book here, which tells me why I've picked orange. And I'll tell you in a minute. I don't know why I've picked orange. Orange is just the colour that came to me. It just felt right. So there are other wee shapes that are quite interesting to do. I'm going to show you them. One of the traditional shapes within mandala is a lotus shape, and that signifies a purity of body, speech and mind. And you can see there are kind of more complex versions of the lotus shape, or there's this really simple version, which is almost like it's almost like a heart shape if you look at it that way around. It's almost like a heart shape, but the top is just a circle rather than coming in that point. So if that helps you to draw the lotus shape. So how I would show you how to do that is this a good sharp pencil? Maybe use a blue. Okay, you would do a wee dot here, and then you would just do your lovely wee round shapes like that. So that's how you would draw a lotus shape. The sun's a really nice symbolic shape that you can use, and the eye. So the sun signifies leadership, the heart obviously signifies love, as I'm sure you would probably guess, and the eye signifies intuition. What can quite often happen when you're working with mandala is that shapes will just appear in your mandala that you didn't even really deliberately create. They just have formed out of other things that you have worked on. So in the wee worksheet that I think Leanne and Claire will give you, I've given you some of these wee examples of some of the shapes that you can use if you're creating your mandalas in the future. So because I've drawn that wee lotus shape there, what I want to do is I want to do that right round. So you'll notice that I'm just basically repeating the shape all the way around, and that's what gives you almost the patterns within your mandala. And what I was saying earlier on about if you do what you would maybe think was maybe a mistake, no such thing when it comes to mandala. If you draw the wrong way, so instead of doing that way, you do that or something, you think, oh no, that's wrong, I've never done that right. So what you would do is you would just do that everywhere. You just do that right round the whole thing. You think, well, It's called a happy accident. And that's why mandala is supposed to take you out your comfort zone a wee bit, take your control away. And I think I quite like the freehand mandala for that, but I completely accept if you're the type of person that likes things to be in control. So I'm hoping you can see that okay. You can see I'm working on the wee lotus shape, and what I've done with my wee happy accident there. There you go. There's a wonderful mosaic artist on YouTube and Facebook and stuff that you can look up. If you just type in mandala and mosaic, this woman will come up, and she's creating these amazing mandalas all around her house, and she just loves the whole concept so much that she's filling her whole house with them, and they are pretty stunning. But I kept thinking, if she ever has to sell that house, I hope the person that she sells it to likes mandala, because it's everywhere. Hope everybody's getting on okay. I'm going to have to try and do an upside down heart here. Now, normally what I would do is I would be holding my wee pad in my hand, and I would be just moving it round when I was working on it. But just so that you can all see it, I'm making life really difficult for myself by having to draw upside down hearts, so they're a bit completely different sizes. That's okay, I'm comfortable with that. So, where are we now? Right, let me have a look at the book, and I'll tell you what orange signifies in my colours. And you can probably look up and find all these things in online if you're really interested in the psychology and the spiritualism of the mandala you've created. Here's the colour one. I picked orange first. Let's see what it says about orange. It's got an orange in it. Most of you might just be using pens. Orange. Orange is the secondary colour between red and yellow in the spectrum. Maybe you knew that. And you've got some lovely Buddhist monks there wearing orange. As such, it represents a midway point between the red of libido and the yellow of spirit. In India, orange is the colour of the sacral chakra, which rules sexuality and emotional relatedness. And it tells you loads of information about that. Because it is difficult to maintain a balance between sexuality and spirituality, orange often symbolises lust and infidelity. Well, that's just really a wee bit too much information. A struggle between your animal instincts and the higher aspects of yourself. Orange also symbolises confidence, creativity, adventurousness and sociability. Well, I think I'm very sociable. It's the colour associated with the autumn and the harvest, with pumpkins, and the leaves turn many colours. So I suppose we're coming into the autumn. That would make sense, wouldn't it? It's also the hue of the outcast. In India, criminals wore the colour orange. And it's not really looking good for me this morning, is it? Anyway, I went on to blue. Maybe that would be a better place to go. So it's very, very interesting. The colours that you choose, the shapes that you end up selecting or that end up appearing in your mandala can be absolutely interesting, and it can tell you a bit about how you're feeling and stuff. Right, so I will go back to this wee one that I started at the beginning, because I just feel like doing that just to show you how I would do that. So where would I go now? I'm just going to repeat these wee shapes. I particularly like using these pens. I like how it gives me a nice clear line. These are just the wee fine, these are called wee fine liner pens, you know, the sort of ones you get. I'm going to try and hold up to the camera, but I can't work it with my camera. That's the one. Wee fine liner pens, I like them for drawing lots of things, but I particularly like them for mandala because it gives you that quite definite line. So you see with the wee lotus shape, I'm doing a wee dot and then just a wee curve. So it goes from a kind of, it's almost like, as I say, the bottom half of a heart shape. Try and do them this way around. It is a very addictive practice. You can get quite involved in it. Some people, do you remember there was a craze for people doing colouring in, mindful colouring, and quite often people would use a mandala for that because, you know, the patterns can be so beautiful and engaging. Oh, that's a bit of a strange mandala shape there, I went. Sorry, lotus shape. So I will do, sometimes I quite like to just do sort of almost like kind of trumpet shapes from things. Sometimes when I'm working in my book, I don't like to make things don't like to make the shapes too big initially because it kind of fills up the space too quickly, and I want to get as much detail as I can. So, do you see? Where am I here? Yeah, these went a wee bit crazy, but I'll go with it. I must feel it reaching out today. It's a really quite a good wee thing to do when you're in a meeting as well. You know that way when you're in a meeting and there's other people talking and you're kind of concentrating. Well, I used to doodle quite a lot anyway in these circumstances, but this is quite a kind of constructive way to doodle because it actually kind of focuses your mind in a way, and it allows you can be doing like kind of two things at once, especially if you're not very good at doing two things at once. So our mandalas that signify the cycle of our lives, the mandalas that celebrate the cycle of our breathing, quite a lot of our lives are filled with stress and stuff that, you know, makes your mind kind of work overtime. This is just a nice way of releasing some of that. How did I do that? I did it that way. And you will be completely astonished at what you can actually achieve in mandala. Just don't forget to pick the kids up for school and, you know, that kind of thing when you're a bit engrossed. Try to be responsible. Right, so that is already too short there, so I want to make these bits a wee bit longer just to, so I will do that and then I'll create wee boxes on the end. Is everybody doing okay out there? Oh, hold on, I've got chats here, I'm not paying attention. I hope there's nobody asking me a question. Yeah, Yeah, there's a lot of somebody's asking about the sexual stuff. That was just me. That was just me. The colour orange. All the other colours signify different things. But that's part of our lives, isn't it? Who we are, our gender, all these things. Right, okay, where am I going to go from here? So when you start to do your kind of basic shapes, you can see mine looks a bit like a sunflower or something at this point. You can start to see it's quite, you know, the spacing and stuff's quite similar. So I might want to start working in the way now. I mean, you can just keep going out the way as much as you like, but then you can start to work in the way as well. So these wee lotus shapes that I've got, I'd quite like to repeat them. Okay. And then what can also look really quite cool is if you just do wee dots and things. It fills up a wee bit of space and makes it quite an interesting. I'm just giving you options here, guys. You don't have to do everything that I'm doing because that would be kind of defeating the purpose, really. Sometimes wee stripes and things like that can be nice. Right, I'm going to fill up this space a bit because it's not really. It's kind of about balance. Balance is the key to this. The balance of things when you feel as if something's not quite in balance and you think, right, I need to change that wee bit there. I suppose it's how we do things in our lives as well. We think, no, that's not quite right, I'm just going to change that wee bit. So what would I like to do here? I think I feel like filling this up a bit. So it can be as controlled or as kind of free as you feel that particular day. And you find that when you look back, as I showed you in my wee book, when you look back through your designs, you go, oh, they're actually quite different on different days. And if there's anybody here today that is feeling like, oh, I'm not really very good at art and they're a bit nervous, and then I hope that you're achieving something here and actually thinking, oh, actually that's quite good, quite interesting. Quite a dynamic image I'm feeling I've created today. So what would I like to do now? I feel I want to be quite strong in these wee bits. So I'm just kind of doing a wee bit of almost shading these wee bits with the pen. I'm kind of filling them in a bit to make them a bit stronger. And it also allows me to slightly alter if I haven't got my spacing quite right. I can tweak it a wee bit by doing this. If anybody hears a strange noise, that's my dog in the background who's having a dream. It's not me growling, honestly. And if my doorbell goes, you'll also hear her barking, because that's one of our other hobbies. My daughter was going to take her out, but I said, no, it's fine as long as nobody comes to the door. I'm sure you're all feeling that in the lockdown. If any of you get any pets, that they're all a bit feeling a bit odd about everybody being here. Oh, who's chatting? Oh my goodness, is that nearly the time? Right, okay. So a really nice thing to do when you've been working on your mandala, I know you maybe only finished it yet, so because these things are quite they're quite captivating, and you can really get caught up in them as I show you from mine. And I actually wanted to show you this wee one. This wee one ended up becoming a bit like an apple. I don't quite know how that happened. Where is my apple? See, it ended up becoming a wee bit an apple. I was trying to use from the other ones. You can see that I've used the regular spacing, so I've used everything times 2. So it's like, you know, remember at the beginning we did 8 lines. We did, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we did it that way. Well, this one I started with 3. So if you look at some of the examples of the Celtic cross, they quite often go like that. So you can find these things online if you wanted to try have a wee shot at the wee cross. But this one ended up becoming an apple, which I quite liked. That was just, that kind of came from nowhere. So what I would encourage you to do once you've finished your mandala, just as you started with breathing and you started considering how you were feeling in yourself before you started your drawing, what you would do at the very end when you finished your mandala and you decided that's it, I've completed it, is just sit and contemplate it for a wee while, have a wee look at it and see how it makes you feel. See if you feel relaxed, if you feel as if you've expressed yourself. And it might just actually give you a wee bit of comfort. It might just make you feel as if you've completed something and you've, oh, I've just noticed a wee dot that I've missed it. And I would just keep working on it. And I have seen me actually, some of the mandalas I've created, I've ended up going back and working on them again. So it can be just whatever you want it to be, really. So I really hope you've enjoyed that today, and I really hope that you'll do more mandalas in the future. And thanks very much for asking me along to do this, and hopefully do some more art stuff.